What makes you happy?
Be yourself, be positive. Just another mindset.
Hello, friends, and welcome to a new episode of the Just Another Mindset podcast. We need a paradigm shift if it comes to our economic and social systems. Let us drive this change together. The Just Another Mindset podcast shares inspiration and tangible techniques on how to create seismic shifts in an outdated system, collectively and for individuals alike. My name is Ismael, and each week I bring to you a relevant conversation, message, or theme that will not only entertain you, but help you to change towards a more meaningful and satisfying life. Get encouraged by listening to successful thought leaders, inspiring individuals, and impressive changemakers. Change from within will last and create positive results for all of us. Let us get inspired and embrace collective changes for the better. In today's episode, I talk to Scott Friedman about why self-awareness is key for making progress. Scott believes in deliberate action and hard work. If you want to do something, then do it. The only failure is when you give up on what you want to do. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. In this episode, we talk about a healthy lifestyle and components of such: fitness, nutrition, and mentality. Scott shares the reasons behind his progression from talking about fitness only towards discussing a healthy lifestyle and mindset on his podcast. We discuss instant gratification and expectations and how both have a tremendous impact on anticipated results. We discuss short-term and long-term planning, and we evaluate the importance of self-awareness. And with that, Scott, a warm welcome to the Just Another Mindset podcast. And my first question for you is, how do you feel and what is on your mind?
I feel good, how do I feel? I feel great. I woke up a little while ago, got my morning routine in, so I'm feeling kind of normal. And what's on my mind is I'm excited for the questions. I'm excited for this interview. I'm excited to be here, so I appreciate the time that you're allowing me to kind of have on the show.
Wonderful. Likewise, I'm also really looking forward, and you just already raised one topic that I'm sure we're going to shine a little bit more detail on is a morning routine. But before we talk about morning routines and habits and so forth, I would be interested, Scott, do you have something like a vision and a mission in life? And if so, would you like to share it with us?
Yeah, for sure. So, like everyone else is, you wake up one day and you're like, oh, this is what I want to do. And you start going, and then like a month later, you're like, okay, well, maybe it's this. So as of right now, as it stands today, this recording, when it gets released, the vision is really to, I want a podcast. I already have a podcast, as we'll probably go into, and things like that. But I want to speak from stage. I love, I have a message I want to send to people about their mindset, about living a healthy life. And I want to be able to speak from stage, whether that's keynote, whether that's workshops, or that's just this interactive thing. Not going to say I'm like Tony Robbins or anything, if your audience knows who Tony Robbins is, or like Les Brown or anything like that. Not like that necessarily, but I want to get the message out to as many people as I possibly can about mindset, about, living a healthy lifestyle. So that would be like the number one thing, is to, be able to speak from stage on the largest stages I can possibly imagine, and really share the message. So if that means traveling, which I'm not even a big traveler, I don't even like airplanes. If that means traveling, I'm willing to do that, to kind of go on there and do it. At the same time, coaching people one-on-one, small group, things like that. So I already do a little bit of that, but really scaling it up 10 to 100-fold what I'm doing right now, and really getting out there to share kind of what I think is a super important thing for people to live a better life.
No, absolutely. Helping people living better lives, and doing that by sharing your message and doing coaching. Do you want to share with us today your message, what it is in a nutshell, and then we're going to see where that takes us?
Yeah, I find it so hard. Like, obviously everyone needs to get good at like their elevator pitch. It's just like there's so much to it. I'm like, wait, no, there's more. But in a nutshell, it's, I want to help people get from thinking to doing, because there's so many different fad diets out there. There's so many different best workout routines. And what I think we miss is when we're building our foundation, it's built in a house of cards. And so we need to dial back, focus on building habits, focus on discipline, focus on understanding your reason why, which then gets you from thinking to doing point A to point B so that you can have long-term sustainable results. So that is what I want. I don't want you to have to worry about in 6 months, oh, what do I do? Like, you're going to know it. You're going to build the knowledge. You're going to do those kind of things. So thinking to doing, mindset, motion, momentum, and then building a healthy lifestyle for yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And all those we're going to look into a little bit more detail in a bit. And before we do that, Scott, it would be very interesting to understand, because you already talked about healthy lifestyle, you talked about fitness. What role and since when does a healthy lifestyle play in your personal life? And what importance does it have, really?
It's a great question, and it's actually a twofold question, because I think fitness. So actually it's a threefold question, really, because I think when you say, the healthy lifestyle has three, maybe not just three, but three major components to it. If you talk to a health coach, it's like the 7 dimensions. But for me, you have your fitness, you have nutrition, then you have kind of your mentality. I think I'll split up into those three categories. My fitness took off first. I think it's the easiest thing of them all, and it was really. When I was a junior in high school, I was always like this really twiggy, skinny kid, like an Elmo, kind of like just like skinny arms. Like I was always in shape. I could run, I could lift weight, I could do things. But then I started to notice, I'm like, like I can't see my skinny abs anymore. But not that there was muscle there, but I had these skinny abs. I couldn't see them. I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. I'm like a sophomore or junior in high school. Like I should be able to see this. So I decided to join the track team purely because I like to run really fast. I was a sprinter. I was like, okay, I'm done in like 20 seconds. Like I'm good. I don't have to run 10 miles or anything like that. Just to get in shape, just to build it. From there, the seniors on the team would get you in the weight room. And I started to experiment with lifting weights in very embarrassing fashion. Like just everything that could go wrong went wrong. But I found myself attracted to lifting weights. I'm like, okay, like this makes a lot of sense. Join the local gym. And I started to go, 2-3 times a week. It could not have been worse the first month. I was horrible at it. And, I'm not sure if you want to get into that, but just horrible at lifting weights. And then I go to college. And my first, and this is what solidified me because sometimes people go to college and they go one direction versus the other. I've been a year of working out a little bit. So now it's the time to either get serious or not get serious. I break my ankle in the first 3 weeks of school. It had to, again, I lived on the 5th floor of a dorm with no air conditioning, middle of August in the Midwest, so it's like 80, 90 degrees, no air conditioning. Bunk beds, I lived on the top bunk. And just horrible, on crutches, in a boot every single day. And the amount of effort it took to go up and down the stairs every day was just monumental, because there's no elevator. So I'm like, what do I do? No one's helping me. I have no friends except for my roommate on my floor. I don't know anyone, and you're brand new. So what I would do every single day after class, I'd come home, I'd grab before I come home, I would go to the gym for like 2 or 3 hours, mostly because I had nothing else to do, and it took me that long to finish a normal workout program because I had to hobble over everywhere a bunch of times. So I really got into this just 6-month routine of just going, because I was in crutches for like 3 months and a boot for 6 months. And they actually messed up my diagnosis, which is why it took so long to heal. But yeah, so that would be the first part. I just built it in, and it became this natural routine of my lifting weights. Nutrition came about 3 years later. I used to think, I'm having like a chicken sandwich from like the local deli. I'm like, it's a fried chicken, but it's fine. That's healthy. It's chicken. So I had no idea what healthy really was in college. And then I became a kinesiology major, which is mostly fitness programming, a little bit of nutrition. I started to understand nutrition more. And then I graduated, became nutrition certified. So that's how nutrition kind of came into my life. I started to meal prep. I started to realize, this food's probably not healthy. You shouldn't eat this one. I have to adapt this food. So I got those right. Probably both of those were pretty solidified right after college. And then mentality is, that is the hardest thing. It's, you're always fighting with yourself. I would say, maybe I started to really get into it 2.5, 3 years ago. I didn't think it was important. I really didn't think it was important. I thought meditation was woo-woo. I thought yoga was a waste of time. I was just like, okay, this stuff, vision boards, goal. I'm like, this stuff doesn't matter. Just work hard. It'll happen for you. I didn't care. I literally didn't care. I could not. I mean, I was in a fraternity in college. Like, you can imagine, like, in a fraternity in college, like having a vision board on your wall and just people like throwing beer cans at it. Like, there was no way. And I didn't believe that stuff. I really didn't. I mean, I was actually part of I am part of a wellness company right now, and part of my job is to make sure we have, meditation and mindfulness practitioners. And I'm like, oh, whatever, like anyone can do it. And I realized, I'm like, oh, like 3 years ago, I'm like, this is actually super important. And I didn't realize how important it was. I would say I've been practicing just mindset related activities for about 3 years, and I've not mastered it by any means, but every day I practice, I do get better and better, which I feel has definitely helped with everything else in my life. So to give you a very, very long answer to a short question, my three-phase approach has happened over the last 10 to 12 years or so.
Especially to the latter, what you explained, I think you're never really gonna master the mentality, and that is part of the mentality, right? So you do yoga, you do meditation, and you do things for yourself, but not for the sake of mastering something. And I'm sure we're gonna look into some of them, at least while we talk about routines and while we talk about healthy lifestyle. And you are a motivational speaker, and you're also a fitness coach. You taught us through how you got there, but can you also share with us a little bit, is this a hobby for you or is this a full-time job?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say it's you kind of hit both. I work full time as I'm the vice president of a company, which will remain nameless in here just for the sake of it. But a vice president of a corporate wellness company. Not too many of them. You could probably find out which one. And so I do that full time, and that's probably like 50 hours a week or so. And I started podcasting and doing more speaking on the side. It was more of a passion project. I had all this pumped up. Just like I wanted to talk about it, and no one was talking about it in my current field, and so I wanted to talk about it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab a microphone, and I was listening to this podcast. It's like, dude, just use your phone, record on your phone. Like, people will listen, like they love it. So I started recording on my phone. I probably recorded 20 episodes, and deleted them all. Because I was like, no, I can't. I finally started releasing them. Okay, I'll do this. I bought like this little course to kind of show me how to do it, and what do I do here? How do I do this? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if I also gave presentations? I'm always told that I can do public speaking, and I'm not afraid of it. I can stand right now. You give me a stage of 1,000 people, I can talk about anything on a stage. I don't care, like whatever. So I start getting into that, and then so it's still a side project. It's still a passion project per se, but I definitely want to turn this into, at minimum a full time. I don't think there's a reason why I can't do both at the same time, and really start, making, I guess, more of a living doing it. But as of right now, it's more of a side passion, which is doing very well. I will say it's doing very well, but I do plan on spending more time with it in the future for sure.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. And before we dig a little bit deeper, you already mentioned your podcast, and I noted for myself a question to ask about the podcast evolution of yourselves. And your first podcast was called Scott Speaks Fitness, and your current one is called The Power of Progress. And I will leave that to you. Why did you change the name? What is the difference between those podcasts? And let's see where it takes us from there.
Yeah, so it's actually a really simple answer. So I got this course about how to, get speaking gigs, how to talk to people. And part of it was you need to have an email address, have a business, and the business should just be your name. And what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm Scott and I'm speaking. And that domain name wasn't taken. I'm okay, well, I'm talking about fitness as an umbrella term, not just like fitness as lifting weights, but fitness as the umbrella wellness term. Okay, Scott Speaks Fitness. I'm like, well, okay, well, I want a podcast. That's my main goal here, is just to have a podcast, talking to a microphone, see if anyone listens. If they don't, at least it's cathartic for me. So I was like, well, the website's called Scott Speaks. I guess I'll call the podcast Scott Speaks, which in hindsight was a terrible name, because there is no one's going to look for that ever. And there's nothing there. But so I did about 300 episodes. I had a handful of interviews on there, and really just kind of just treading water, trying to figure it out. And my biggest thing was, it was just tips. Scott Speaks Fitness was health, fitness tips. it was how many grams of protein should you have a day? How do you what exercise is the best for this? And very generic things. Like you go to YouTube, type in fitness advice, and everyone's talking about the same exact things I was talking about. And my flavor started to turn into mindset, started to turn into building momentum with your goals versus just fitness related things. And people would ask me, Scott, like, oh, why don't you do demos and why don't you do workout videos? I'm like, everyone's doing that. I'm like, there's so much information. Like, you don't. I'm not the best trainer in the world. Hands up. There's plenty of great trainers out there. I'm a good trainer, but I'm like, everyone's doing that. Like, you don't need more people telling you the same exact things because everyone's telling you that. And then I got a coach because I was just having kind of a crisis of kind of identity of what I should do. And basically, we discussed and let's decide. Let's do a new podcast. Let's pivot the podcast. And let's do same undertone of fitness, healthy living, things like that. But let's focus on mindset, focus on momentum building, and see where that goes, because that's what I'm talking about. And I started. If you look at the last episodes, and I still pay for it to be on there because I think it's a good stopgap if people want to kind of go from one to the other. Is basically. I talked about the 4% rule and how if you just focus for 4% of your day, you'll see results. And building discipline versus motivation. I was talking about that on a fitness podcast, and so it was a natural switch to pivot to a more mindset oriented podcast. Where now on the Power of Progress, I don't really talk about fitness specifically. Oh, here's what exercise to do. Here's how you do your exercise program. I talk more about how to get your mind right, and I say mind right, how to get your mind right and how to build momentum that way versus worrying about what diet to have versus worrying about what program to have, because that's not really that important to me, because I think any program, any diet, any whatever you do can work if you have the right mindset going into it, if you understand what it takes to succeed with it. I think that's what most people miss, is they think, oh, this diet is going to solve everything. Well, no, that's not the case, and we've seen that at least in the U.S. because our obesity rate is like just ridiculous. It's like 42% or something. The overweight rate is like 70%, which is relative. So, but like obesity rate 42% is insane. Some countries are literally starving. How do you like even get to that point? And so that's kind of where I changed my thought of, okay, well, everyone does fitness, but no one's talking about mindset of fitness, or not no one, but a lot of people aren't talking about that. So that's the pivot. And I love talking about mindset, building discipline, because that's kind of how I did it myself, as I did the same thing. I was, fitness program, do all this. And I'm like, wait a second, like I'm missing a massive component of helping people. And it actually came about with me, with my clients. And it actually came about with me kind of seeing like, okay, some of my clients are getting results, some are not getting results. What's the common denominator here? What's going on? And it came down to people's mindset and how to develop, what they wanted to do in their goals. So that's how I pivoted from Scott Speaks Fitness to the Power of Progress. And it's more mindset oriented so that you can prime yourself to see results. Regardless of what you want to do, if you want to, if it's sales, if it's your business, whatever, it's the principles intact to build momentum and to see results long term. So you don't need to focus on having that smoothie, that whatever you need to do for that specific fad you're doing. It's focused on it's internal. It's more about you doing the work, and then you'll learn it, and you will never need someone else again.
No, that makes perfect sense. Thank you very much for sharing that. And before we talk about the mindset of momentum and what you mean with that, I can hear a lot of enthusiasm. So it's, again, a twofold question. The first one is, how do you feel with this name change, but also this topic change of your podcast? That would be the one. And the second one is, you talk about doing more than thinking, or coming from thinking to doing. And how has that name change also helped you to realize that maybe the first focus, or the focus of the first podcast, was good to begin with, but maybe the focus of the second podcast is what you are really passionate about and where you see your real vision for?
Okay, so the first one was the how I feel about the name change and kind of the topic changes. Yeah, I love it. I think it's it's difficult because you have to change kind of the content that you're putting out there to match kind of what you want to do with it. And also at the same time, it's difficult because, do I want to stay in the fitness lane? Because I think a lot of these principles, I can go to a sales team and talk about these principles and be like, hey, look, like, you don't need to be in the fitness realm. These are some things you should be doing regardless. I just happen to be a fitness nutrition expert. So it's like I have trouble getting away from that mold, which I think eventually it'll evolve to me doing more than just fitness nutrition. But I love it. I think it's a great thing because this is where I think the results come from. I think the results come from talking about your mindset. I think it's a stigmatized industry. When you hear mindset, the first thing you do is just like, okay, go away, leave me alone, woo guru stuff. Like, no, not really. It's just, and there's science that backs it up. I haven't done the specific science, but I've read about the science and things like that. It's a tough transition because I want to talk about fitness. Like some episodes, I'm like, oh, let's talk about this workout routine. I'm like, that's not mindset related. Like I should probably focus on doing this instead. And so when it comes to content creation, you have to be very careful with what you release out there because you want to make sure it's congruent with the message that you're sending. But I think the evolving part of it would just be, eventually it won't just be fitness, nutrition, and health. It will be anything. And I try to weave that in there once in a while. And hey, look, like if you're trying to start your own business, if you're trying to have a healthy relationship, if you're trying to get promoted, if you're trying to be the best sales, whatever goal that you have, it's all about goals. And that's really what the podcast pivot's about. So I think doing Scott Speaks was awesome because it got me to basically just learn and practice for 2 years and kind of how to actually speak into a microphone a little bit and talk to a blank screen when you're like just staring at yourself like, okay, like I don't know, like it's very weird the first couple times you do it. And if you listen to the very first few episodes of Scott Speaks Fitness, which is it's still there, like they're horrible. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I released this. Now I'm not sure I'm much better, but at least I think I sound better than I did before. So I didn't have a microphone the first few times that I did this. So it was a matter of just kind of evolving. But I think realizing that, okay, fitness isn't the issue, it's a symptom. And that's where, and I think that's how I make the pivot. And that's why I like the pivot. I love the topic. And that's why I think it's been a very easy transition. And that's why I kind of think that's the way I want to go with the messaging moving forward, because I think that's where people need the most help long term. And I forgot the second question. What was your second question? I didn't answer that.
The second question was basically, how did that learning feel for you? And you basically answered it from talking about fitness to talking about mindset and mentality, because this is what you're really passionate about. And you just answered it. What I understood is that it was a good foundation to learn skills, to talk into a camera, to find one topic to talk about, and then pivot and then figure out for yourself, okay, this is what I'm really passionate about. And I'm just suggesting assumptions here. It can be that in 2 years, you're not talking about fitness mindset so much, but you talk about mindset for career changes or for motivating salespeople or teams or leadership and so forth. So it's in constant evolvement. And I think that also helps a lot to understand that you start with one thing and you gain a lot and you learn a lot, and it might evolve to something very different, or step by step into something very different, which is even more fun for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I think you nailed it. That's a pretty accurate summary. I think I'll always be in the fitness field in some way, shape, or form, because that is my passion. That is what I do. That is my specific specialty. But yeah, I think evolving it upward and expanding it as I kind of grow is and as I learn more about it, and as I get higher in my career. And learning more about leadership, because I oversee a team of probably 20 people right now, and so using these things with my team is very important with me as well. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And how would you summarize the mindset of momentum, and why is it so important?
How would I summarize the mindset of momentum? That's a tough question. So I would say it's three different components. So it's mindset, motion, momentum, and one thing leads to the other. So I wouldn't say there's definitely a mindset of momentum, but and I'm assuming you're talking about the podcast specifically, is so I think the first part is understanding your mind. How do you feel? What are you looking for? What are your goals? And really doing that intro self-reflection of kind of what it is that you're looking to do and understanding what that comes with. And I'll give you the fitness example. For example, someone tells me, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds. That's great. Love to hear it. And if you want to do that, that's awesome. But the issue comes with after 2 weeks, they don't see results. They're not what they thought they were going to be. They think 50 pounds, they're going to look a certain way. And so they have this goal, but they don't really understand what it takes. They don't understand, okay, you can't, you might have to add certain foods and take away certain things to your diet. You might not be able to drink every week. And, there's certain sacrifices you have to make. And they're not mentally prepared to do that. They just think if I just say I'm going to lose 50 pounds, it'll be easy. I'm going to do it, and not take into account that it's not that easy, and it not going to be easy. And so the mindset component is really just understanding what's needed in order to achieve that goal. And if you're not willing to do those things, and again, everyone has their own ways of doing it. If you're a trainer, right, you have your own specific ways of losing weight or whatever it might be, or so I get, not one thing is the right way to do it per se, but there's a handful of ways. But if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, make those priorities, like you might have to start getting up an hour early every day. You might have to. There might be no other. You might have 3 kids. You're a single parent. Your kids. You might have no time in the day except for 5 to 6 in the morning before your kids get up to do a quick 20-minute workout or to meal prep, whatever. You might not have that time. So are you willing to wake up that hour? Oh no, I can't. Okay, well, there's, I'm not saying that's the only way, but you have to be willing to make certain sacrifices and certain priorities to get that. And that's shifting your mindset and understanding if you want a specific goal, there are specific tangible things, actionable things you have to do in order to do that. And then getting on board with that with yourself, reflecting on why it's important. And that goes back to why is this your goal? Why is this actually important to you? That's the mindset component of it, is really and you dive deep into that. I get really into the weeds with your reason why, setting up specific SMART goals, setting, like going through it. And really, I mean, if you do, on a coaching call with me, like I'll get people crying because I dig deep with them. I want them to open up, because if it's not emotional for you, then you're not gonna do it. Because and if you're in the Midwest and or even in, like, if you're North, there's no motivation in the world that's gonna get you up at 5 in the morning, warm up your car, ice off your car. I don't have a remote start for my car. I got to sit in my car and warm up, and I'm not letting it go in Chicago. I got to sit there so no one steals it. And like go to the gym and then work out. There's no amount of motivation in the world. Like, I would rather sleep in my nice warm bed. So it's about mindset. It's about what am I fighting for? What am I doing this for? So for me, my family, whatever. That's the mindset. The motion component of the show is really, starting to move, getting in motion, actually physically doing the acts that you're talked about. And the momentum is the motion in the right direction, because we can move in any direction. That doesn't mean we're actually going to see results. It means you can move left, you can move right, but then you're not doing anything. You can move up, you can move down. So motion's great, but then momentum solidifies what direction you should be going in. And it's about taking those little wins. It's taking win after win after win and realizing, okay, I'm seeing progress over time, which is like, think about the best example I can give is think about, a snowball going down a mountain. Or going down, it builds up snow and it becomes this massive ball. That's momentum in a nutshell. And you start off really small, and actually the better example might be going up. But the idea is it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go down. And so as you start getting these little wins, like you lost a pound, you did this, you got that promotion, or you stayed, whatever it might be, right? As you build the results, you start to get more and more momentum, and momentum drives you to do more and more things. And so it's like if you're trying to, everyone wants to jump to the ending of a book. That's why fad diets are so amazing. That's why it's so, lose 20 pounds in 1 month. It's like, okay, I mean, that's why I'm not sure you know the show The Biggest Loser, where basically these contestants go on the show and they do this crash diet. It's insane. They lose hundreds of pounds. And I think that there's a study done. It was like the vast majority of them gained all their weight back within 5 years. And because of the way they did the crash diet, their metabolism totally shut down. And they're actually worse off now than they were before, because they just wanted the results so quickly versus just take your time. It's better to lose 30 pounds in a year than lose 30 pounds in a month, because you'll actually keep it off long term. And you're going to feel better about it, but it's all about that, building that momentum over time. People don't want momentum. They just want instant results. And I'm like, well, if you want instant results, if you do long-term once, right, you're more likely to stick with it forever. But if you want instant, you're more likely to do instant every 6 months. And it's just, you keep going this yo-yo routine over and over again, and you'll never see long-term results. But if you just do it one time and deal with it, and go with it because how slow it takes for certain goals, right? Whether it's promotion, relationships, whatever. Build that momentum is so important. So I to answer again, long-winded answer, but momentum is really that, those successes along the way to build up results, or not successes, but habits that you build. Okay, if your goal is I want to start meditating 7 days a week, and you're not meditating at all right now. Okay, start with 1 day a week. And you did it on Monday. That's a win. Okay, that was your goal. Next week, 2 days. Next week, 3 days. Or, okay, I'm going to try and do it every day for 5 minutes. Okay, I did it for 4 of the 7 days. That's 4 wins. Like, you gave yourself 4 wins that week. You didn't have any. But so it's about building those steps, building momentum, and understanding it's just progress over time. As long as you can improve over time, that builds momentum. That builds you to want to do more. And then you start seeing more results.
Thank you very much. And I have a follow-up question, in fact, because I suppose in the beginning, you see for most of the things that you initiate, you see a lot of progress. You lose fat, you build muscle, you go more often to the yoga mat or meditate. But at some point, the progress gets much slower. So you do not see as fast progress anymore. How do you, and we can talk about discipline and motivation maybe, how do you keep going if you do in fact not see daily or weekly progress anymore?
I think that goes back, again, this is why I love talking about mindset. It goes back to the expectations. When I train my clients, I go, look, there's most likely going to be this, call it 6-week phase where, maybe it's a month or whatever. There's no specific time on it. Where it's going to be awesome, right? If you don't overdo it and you do just a good amount, you're going to start seeing results. You're going to feel better. And I call it the error ratio. Some people call it the, newbie gains, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But the point is your body's adapting very quickly to this new stimulus. And it will adapt very quickly to it. So you might see a few pounds lost very early on. You get very excited. You're motivated. It feels great. The issue comes with, it's not about not seeing results, it's about the expectation, because now you've built this random expectation on, okay, well, the last 2 weeks I've lost 6 pounds, so that means the next 2 weeks I should lose 6 pounds. Well, no, your body starts to adapt. It starts to realize, okay, we need to start activating this function, this function, this function. It's all happening internally, and it's difficult. So now, if you go into this thinking, okay, I'm just going to lose this very quickly, I'm going to do all this, and don't have a long-term plan in place, that's where most people struggle. And so if you go into this with the understanding of, okay, I'm going to lose, I potentially am going to lose a lot more weight early, and it's going to, going to die off later. That's okay. And if you go into that with the understanding of, okay, it's not going to be the same thing the first 2 weeks that it is in 3 months down the line, you're mentally prepared for that, and you're going to understand that, and then you can adapt what you're doing along the way. And so I think most people get into a situation where they don't understand what to expect. And I think that is where they run into the issue. So if you can basically focus on, okay, here's what I can expect along the way, those plateaus that you see in results, those don't become as big of a deal because you're expecting it. And this comes with not even weight loss, with weight training. If you're trying to gain muscle, this happens too. When you just start out, you see a bunch of just results, and then you plateau. It's an error ratio. Your body's self-correcting to increase certain things internally. And once it's, okay, it feels good, I'm at the right spot, it'll slow you down naturally. And then that's where the grind really begins. It's okay, I have to be willing to take slower results long term, because people start thinking, I'm not doing this right, or this is terrible, this is a waste of time, I'm not seeing results anymore. They get discouraged, they feel terrible. But I think a lot of that can be, focused back on, you just weren't expecting it. You didn't understand that. And now let's say you were expecting it, right? Let's say I was expecting it and it's still very difficult to go through it. That's where you need to build that. Go back to your reason why. Why are you doing this? Go back to your support system. Do you have a support system? How do you support yourself? Stick to what got you there, right? And keep doing it. And as long as you have that fundamental understanding that you're doing the right things, that's what you should rely on. Where a lot of people don't have the understand that they're doing the right things. And so they kind of get this nervous, really innate reaction of, I'm not doing the right things. This is terrible. This isn't going to work. This is way too hard. And then that chocolate cake looks really good, or I'm going to sleep in today, or whatever, obstacle hits your way, whatever your vice is, starts to creep in really, really well, because you're telling yourself this isn't going to work, and your body goes, okay, let's shift back now. You had your fun. We're going to shift back. And I can go through hours on how the body will sabotage you. But basically, I think if you can mentally, I think 80% of people, if you can just identify, understanding what the process might look like, okay, I'm going to see good results at first, then they're going to slow down, it will solve most of your issues. For the other 20% who know that and still have issues, think back to your reason why. Why are you doing this? Okay, what is your actual timetable on doing this? Is it realistic? And that's that's the self-reflection, that's the mindset aspect of it, and that's what we don't focus on as a society. We focus on just this instant gratification, or just do this workout routine, you'll see results. But when they slow down, what do? Go back. Self-reflect. How are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? What results do you want? What did you expect? Why didn't it happen? Are you doing the right things? Well, hey, did you eat well? Oh, I ate great. Okay, what'd you have? Oh yeah, I had those Reese's. I had the cake. I'm like, oh, so you didn't eat that well. And so you it's identifying what went right, what didn't go right, and how to fix those things, how to improve yourself and create progress. And I think it all goes back to your mindset. So I think if you have those kind of tools in your toolbox, whether it's a coach or yourself, that will help the 20% who are struggling. And the other 80%, I think if you just initially start with understanding what it takes and what happens with your goals, then I think that that will help along the way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. And let's detail this why a little bit. So, Scott, let's assume I would come to you for some personal coaching, and let's stick with weight loss. And there are two options. Either I tell you, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds, or I would choose to say I want to feel good in my body. Which direction would we go and why?
Well, I think, usually they tell me one or the other, right? They don't usually, they tell me both great, that you want to feel good in your body, or you want to lose 30 pounds. Okay, so either way, what I would do is I just ask questions. And a great coach will just ask you questions to understand, because it's not about me, it's about you. I do whatever I can to serve you. And if you don't have a coach that's doing that, I'm not advocating for myself specifically, I'm just saying generally speaking, whatever career field you're in, coaches are great to get you to the next level, especially if you have your own business, things like that. But I think that, let's say you want to lose 30 pounds. I would say, okay, why do you want to lose 30 pounds? And I start asking you, I don't expect you to have the answers, but they start talking. And they probably would say, I want to feel good in my own body. The feel good in your own body would usually come out at some point, because usually there's a weight loss goal. Why 30? Well, I thought 30 would maybe look good. Okay, what is looking good to you? Do you have a picture in mind? And they'll pull up a picture. Oh my God, I want to look like, whoever. Me from 10 years ago, right? I want to look like this, do this, whatever. Okay, why? Why do you want to do that? Well, because I'm going to feel good. Okay, so you start writing these down. I'm going to feel good about this. I'm going to do this. I want to look like this. Here's my, okay, so what does that mean to you? Okay, what size clothes do you want to fit in? Okay, what is this? Oh, I actually like the reason because, my brother had diabetes. And then you start getting into family. Oh, I want to be around for my kids. I want to go through this. You start breaking down this one little goal of feeling better in your body / losing 30 pounds, right? Into now you want to have energy to go to your kid's soccer game in 5 years when they're doing soccer, and you want to be able to live until you're 80 so you can see your kids grow up and marry. That's a significantly better reason than just, I want to look good. Right? Again, potential. Now, some of it's you want to look good, but what I do is I create a visceral reaction to them and say, look, this has got to be important to you. Because I know, as someone who's lost 20 or 30 pounds, I know that it's not easy. You need to have a good reason why, and understand why you're doing it. Because if you say you want to lose 30 pounds, I can get you to lose 30 pounds. But you might not look the way you think you're going to look. So if your thing is, I want to look a certain way, well, that's different than losing 30 pounds. And I identify that with them. I say, okay, well, 30 pounds is different. That's just a number. If you want to look like that, we have to do different things than lose 30. 30 pounds is not even important to me. We got to build muscle. There's a different, category. And a lot of people don't even realize, oh my God, I didn't realize I had to build muscle to look like this. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I break down the reason why for them. So, and then what I try and do is, if I have a notepad, or we'll have a Google sheet up, and I'll do it with them. I will type down every single reason why in order that they say them. We don't really prioritize their reasons. I might let them prioritize it later, but when we're done, I mean, there might be 30 reasons that someone and I write them all down because no reason is too small. And I say, look at this list. Look at all the reasons you want to accomplish this. This is your support system. If you haven't told anyone, if you don't have family, whatever it is, this is our support system. Whenever you're doubting yourself, whenever you don't want to do something, whenever 5 a.m. looks horrible on the clock, this is the reason that you're going to get up and you're going to do it because it's important to you. Now, again, are you always going to succeed? No. But it's about, okay, maybe you succeed more often now. Maybe you do what you want to do more often and you build upon that progress over time. And so it's a matter of just kind of building those habits. So that's the reason why behind things is creating that reaction to understand why you're doing what you're doing so that when things get hard, when you plateau, when you don't want to do it anymore, because I guarantee you all that comes. You're never going to feel great all the time. When your body hurts, when this hurts, when you have a wedding, when you have this party, this person's birthday, this cake, this, whatever. This list, this reason why is one of the foundational things that you're going to have to keep you on track. And that's why we go through it. And that's why I would have you go break down everything. So I don't really care what the goal is. I help them break it down to why they're really doing it. And if they, again, and they might not think a reason's important. So sometimes you have to help them through it, but like everything's important to you. And by the way, your goal might be you want to have a 6-pack ab, and that can be a great goal. And because you want to be that person on the beach, great. Let's break that down. Why do you want that? Why? And we again, I'm not a psychologist. We don't go into that the medical field or anything. But why do you want this goal? Because that's going to help you achieve your results. Understanding why about yourself.
Achieving results and reaching those goals, Scott, I don't know if you want to talk to that or not, but maybe you can. And is there an area or in your life or in your fitness or in your healthy lifestyle that you, in fact, did not succeed lately? And how did you deal with that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So there was let's try to think of the dates here. Back in May, maybe it was like April of 2022. I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. Like my goal was to meditate 5 days a week. And this is the most recent failure that I could think of that was like, that makes sense. 5 days a week. Cause I know there's gonna be certain days where I'm just going to forget about it. Like I just forget, like there's not like whatever. It's not like the most important goal in the world to me, but I have my reasons why I did it. But it's something I wanted to start doing because I wanted to fix my mindset when I kind of get healthier. And for about 2 to 3 months, killing it. I was doing great. And I was at the point where it's like, okay, like this is awesome. And I built the habits on it. And then in the summer, I did not account for the summer. The weather was amazing. Didn't account for April, May, June, right? So 3 months. And then this July, August hit. And I'm just like, I'm out all the time. I'm traveling places. I'm not in my routine. I'm out of my routine. And I just kind of forget. My focus shifts to other things. I mean, and I rationalize it. Oh, well, my focus, I don't need to meditate today. No big deal. I don't need to do this today. No big deal. And I rationalized it every way you can. So no big deal. It's okay. Oh, I don't care about that anymore. I'm not doing this and whatever it is, right? Put the goal, I just have ignored it. And I stopped meditating. I once in a while, I'd kind of go back into it. And then I would compromise. Well, if I read and or meditate, that counts. And I started to compromise with myself, talk to myself. Oh, this works. And so in the summer, I just, for whatever reason, I got off track. And we can go through the reasons, but there are various reasons why I got off track for about 2 to 3 months. And I realized, and now it's like September, give or take, and I was like, son of a gun, like, I feel horrible. What am I doing? Like, I knew this is the reason I started this in the first place is because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to get my mind right and kind of get focused on the right things. And part of it is, visualizing what I wanted to do with the future and kind of getting inspiration, things like that. I stopped it. I gotta start this back up again. And so right around September, October, I started meditating again. And the goal was, okay, I'll start with 3 times a week. I'll move it up. And now I'm at, again, I think 5 days a week is a pretty much a 100% yield because I think sometimes you just can't. If it's 7 days a week for me, if you don't get it, you feel horrible. And I'm like, well, I know there's going to be one day where I'm just going to there might be a situation where I can't do it. So I don't want to again, some people might say, Scott, just do it 7 days. Fine, whatever, either way. But it's 5-6 days a week. I try to meditate. Recently, I did 28 days in a row, and just happened to be able to do it 28 days in a row. But if I hit, now I'm back on track since October, and now it's been a handful of months. Back up, I failed. I mean, I failed for 3 months, and I had to work back up to. I changed my meditation style. I did grow in how I meditated. So I used to I used to listen to like YouTube, like 10-minute meditations, just listen to YouTube videos, whatever it was. And right before bed, I kind of learned more about meditation. I switched it up to where now I'm actually just doing silent meditation. Maybe there's like a white noise in the background, but I'm doing silent meditations where I'm kind of doing my own thing. And I actually have a specific meditation audio that I listen to as well sometimes. So I kind of switched up how I did it once I restarted, which I feel like it's been harder, but it's been, I think, better for me in the long run. So I failed. I mean, I failed at that. That was something I didn't do well. I had a goal. I mean, if I had a coach, right? And it's just like, I paid for this coach. Like, I was great for the first 3 months, and then I fell off once the coach stopped with me. It's like, oh my gosh, like, why did I learned all this stuff? Why did I fall off? And that's what happens. And so I think everyone has their struggles. Everyone has the things they're trying to do. And it's about understanding that, the obstacles that come. And I didn't understand the obstacles I was going to face that summer. I just didn't account for it. And that's what threw me off. But then now when summer ended, I was able to kind of reanalyze, okay, I screwed up, and now I need to get back into this and make this a habit again, which I think I've done a good job of. Again, I'm still always improving. But yeah, that would be kind of the answer to that question.
We are all human. Wonderful. I like that. And you use a big word. You called it failure, and that you basically got thrown off the wagon for 3 months, didn't continue with the meditation. Why is accepting and working with this failure so important for yourself?
And I will say, a lot of people say, don't use the word failure, use the word you need to improve. And I believe that to a point, but I also talk like normal people talk. So I do have to cut some of those out. I think it's important to, failure is not a bad thing. I think that's actually where I come from, is failure is not a bad thing. Failure is natural. If you're not failing, then you're not trying. If you have a goal and you don't fail at it, you're not trying. I can't tell you how many times I had a goal and didn't succeed. Okay, so maybe I didn't succeed. Maybe it's not a failure. But what the point is, it's tomato, tomato. At this point, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're so afraid to fail, you're never going to achieve anything, because you're never going to take the risks that you're going to need to take. And they might not even be risks. Whatever it is, to achieve something. And so to me, to acknowledge I screwed up is to live in the real world. I'm like, okay, I screwed up, no big deal. But that's not a big deal to me. Screwing up, I screw up every day. I mean, there's so many things I mess up on a daily basis, whether I get too angry at someone, or whether someone annoys me for this stupid, or whatever, whatever it might be. I can get angry all day. There's micro failures every day. It's accepting those and learning from it. The only way you truly fail is if you don't learn from it. And that's where the negative comes in. But if you're willing to learn from it, willing to just improve from it, I improved. I got better from understanding, okay, here's the reason why I screwed up in the summer, and I need to embrace that so it doesn't happen again. Okay? Whether you're in a relationship and you screwed up, and maybe you cheated, maybe you didn't, maybe you weren't as attentive to your partner as you should have been, that's screwing up. Accept it. It wasn't all their fault. You have a big part to blame, whatever it is, right? Whether it's your diet, job, whatever. You were fired, everything you do, there's never, it's usually never, solely on something else. You have some responsibility. If you take responsibility and are able to really truly analyze it and go, okay, yes, here's where I could have done better, and you take that information and you improve on it next time, that's progress. You are now a better person than you were before. You are now a more enhanced person than you were before in using that failure. And I never would have learned that lesson this summer if I didn't fail initially. So maybe I was destined to fail because I wouldn't have learned that lesson. But now I have that, and I can use it moving forward to where, okay, I won't fall into that trap again. And who knows, maybe I'll stop again in the winter, not knowing there's something in the winter, whatever, that I don't know about, but I can improve. And then eventually, time goes on, you get better and better and better because you've accepted failures. I know, this might not be specific on topic, but like there's a guy I listen to for like real estate investing, and he's like, I've lost millions of dollars in real estate investing, but I've learned. And now that I've learned, I have this tens of million portfolio because I was willing to take those risks. Completely different from fitness, but the fact that the principle is the same. I took the risk and I failed, I learned from it, and then I was able to succeed later. So failure actually breeds success. If people think it's just success, And success breeds more success? Not really. Failure breeds at least your initial success. And then you're going to fail again, and then you're succeeding again. Now, maybe other people don't see those failures and they just see this, but you're living the life like this, right? You're living up and down, whereas people only see your successes. I mean, look at just any famous person off the top of your head, right? Drake was on Degrassi in the first part of his career, where I'm assuming he failed a bunch, right? Like, there's some other people I won't go there, but Drake is the most famous artist on the planet, making just, I mean, what, $1 billion at this point? Michael Jordan didn't make his high school varsity team, there's so many stories of where people failed and then succeeded over time. And I'm not comparing what I do to them. Obviously, those are, I would say outliers in the normal world, but the principles still apply to what you want to do. And so I think that failure is super important, and acknowledging it and reflecting on it and improving upon it is the only way that you're going to get better in the long run.
A good book I was reading some time ago, in fact, on that very topic, failure, is Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. I don't know if you've read it. I'm pretty sure you did. And I really liked it some time ago. No, because it goes exactly in line with what you talk about. Failure only exists in your head, and nobody succeeds all the time. So only if you risk, only if you try, you will make progress. And Scott, let's use that a little bit for a segue and talk about nutrition, food, and a healthy lifestyle. And in fact, in our pre-chat, you mentioned to me that you also really do like beers. And I would be interested, how does that not contradict with a healthy lifestyle, and why?
All right, so people have this stigma on people who are on diets, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm gonna use a trainer example. I have built the habit. I meal prep every Sunday for like an hour and a half, and I make about, call it 10 meals, give or take, plus breakfast every morning. And I have a very specific plan. Now, it's not all the same food, but I have a very specific plan that I eat. I eat very healthy, 90% of the time, okay? Overall. And I built this habit. It wasn't like this all the time. I had to build this over time. It started with like 2 meals a week, and then 6 meals a week, and then I built it. But because of that, I've actually gained the freedom to eat whatever, basically eat crappy when I want to eat crappy. Now, again, will that derail me from a goal? Sure, why not? But I have the knowledge, the experience, and an internal habit system that I've built to now create freedom. People think freedom is, well, I just want to eat whatever I want all the time and not do anything. Okay, you could do that, but guess what happened? You're, not to be morbid, but you're going to be unhealthy. You could potentially die early. It's just not going to work, because that's not how the world works. All this food we have is not real. Not really supposed to be eating it for the most part. There's a lot of crap out there that you're not supposed to be eating. Your body gets addicted to it. Sugar is the most addictive substance on the planet, basically. It's crazy. So, in that said, it's people have and I tell people all the time in the gym, like, oh, I'll take this. I'll have fries. I'll do this. I'll have a soda. Actually, I don't drink soda very often. It's very rare if I do that. But beer, yeah, sure. I went out a few nights ago, and I had a beer on a date. I don't care, like, whatever. I can do that because I have a healthy lifestyle. I can have pizza. I can do burgers, because I understand what it's doing. I understand how to get back on track right away, and I'm not a servant to it. Whereas a lot of people just want to be the servant to all this bad food. So they haven't built the habits to get back on track. So let's say I go out Saturday night. I'm having a burger. I'm having pizza. I'm enjoying myself. Okay, well, I know on Monday, I'm right back on track. And I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to work out. And now, if I have a specific goal in mind, maybe I won't have beer, right? Maybe I won't eat really bad if I'm doing something very specific. So obviously, if you're like a bodybuilder, a physique builder, or if I want to lean out a little bit, yeah, I won't be doing that. But if I'm just trying to maintain, stay in the status quo, yeah, I have no problem going out to happy hour and doing all these things and whatever it is, because I control my health now. So when you gain control, when you build the habits to have control of your life and your body, you can now eat almost guilt-free. Whereas, like, people bring, I work at a gym specifically, people bring us their leftover food, it's never healthy, and the trainers eat way worse than the members, and yet we're in better shape, and yet we're healthier, because we've built that in our bodies to where we're like, okay, we have the freedom to do this, because we understand what it takes to burn it off, what it takes to eat healthy long term, and we're not worried about it, because we know we can do it. We have that knowledge, we have that comfort factor, whereas most people, they eat one bad thing, they freak out. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? Or on the other end of the spectrum, it's they're always eating it and they can't, whatever it is. So they feel like that we're restrictive, where in reality, I guess technically speaking, from a technical, we are restrictive most part, but that allows us to have the freedom when we want to have the freedom, because we don't need to eat burgers and pizza and pasta every single day, all day, because we know it's not healthy for us long term, because we're playing the long game. And if you're doing that right now, it's like, again, in 30 years, it's not going to be good. So you have to understand that. So I think that by eating healthy most of the time, building the discipline, we allow ourselves to have the freedom when we want to have the freedom. And we understand we can't have the freedom all the time. But if I want to have a beer, I'm going to have a beer. If I want to have pizza, I'm going to have pizza. I mean, it's last time I had it, the Super Bowl, I'm not sure when this airs or anything, but the Super Bowl is right around the corner. Like, I'm having pizza. Like, I love the Super Bowl. That is a pizza. That is a soda kind of day. 100%. I'm not worried. Yeah, I might feel a little worse than normal because it's not healthy food, but I'll get back on track. No big deal, because I built that system in place to allow myself the freedom to eat whatever I want, when I want, as long as I keep that main system intact.
And I would be very interested, Scott, to hear from you. Does that come natural by now, or do you still track what you eat, what you go to the gym for, what exercise you do, how often you meditate, or is something that you have by now internalized?
I go back and forth. I will say this. I think it depends on the person you are. I wouldn't. So if the question more broadly is, will you eventually make this second nature? Yeah, sure. Why not? For me, I am definitely a numbers analytics guy, 100% all the way. I mean, you got it. I used to plan out my days to the minute. I mean, literally in college, I was doing all these different. I was planning out my days. Even when I was, my first career, I had to work 5 different jobs out of college, and all part-time training positions, and I had to map out my whole schedule. 30 minutes to drive, 5 minutes to get ready. Here, I'm going to eat at this time. I'm going to work out at this time. I had to my day was filled. I was going to school, grad school at the time too. It was crazy. Me personally, I have a sheet on my computer that has, generally speaking, the ranges of my caloric intake for the foods that I want to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So no, I don't daily track what I'm doing. I kind of have a feel for, okay, if I have this meal and I have this meal, it's going to work. And I make the meals relatively the same every time, but I have a handful of different meals I can select from. I can mix and match, whether it's fish, chicken, beef, turkey, quinoa, rice. I have a bunch of different things I mix and match, and I go through it. And I'm not generally worried about, a 50 calorie difference or a 100 calorie difference every day. When it comes to fitness, I do, when I am on a fitness routine, I do track it because it's one less thing to remember. And I highly recommend everyone does track their fitness, because let's say you're running a mile, okay? And if you're anything like me and you can't just run a mile at 1 mile per, so let's say it's 6 miles an hour, I can't just do that. I have to break it up. Okay, I'm going to do 5.8 for a quarter, 5.9 for a quarter, 6 for a quarter, and I will increase that way. So I'll increase a quarter every time I do it, right or wrong. Same thing with weights. I'll increase by 5 pounds for one set. I can't remember all that. I'm busy. We got work. We got lives. So I write everything. I do write that stuff down so that I can go next time I go to the gym and go, okay, I did 15 pounds for 3 sets. I'm gonna do 15 pounds for 2 sets, and I'm going to do 20 pounds for my third set. And it's just a way for me to track it. I will say eating healthy has become second nature. The calories have become second nature, whereas I can pretty closely identify, okay, that's going to be about 200 calories, give or take. Now, my mind doesn't really think that way. I don't really analyze every food that I'm eating necessarily. I kind of just, I don't think that's the health. Now, I used to. When I was starting out, I used to measure out like carrots. That's how anal I was. But I was like, I have to measure out everything. It's like when you're new at something, you're like, you just want to do it all the time. I've grown past that, where I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have veggies. I'm not gonna care what the veggies are. If I have an apple, whatever, it's 100, it's 80 calories, whatever. If I have carrots, it's carrots. I'm not even gonna count the calories in carrots because it's carrots. If I have this, so there's certain things you allow yourself to kind of just get away with, and you're like, okay, whatever, and it works because you start to have a better intuitive eating system. Most people are like, I love to intuitively eat. And I just heard this recently. It's like, okay, intuitive eating is great if you have intuition. If you're obese, you don't have intuition for eating. And so you can't rely on your intuitive eating system because it's not working properly. So I have built up my intuitive eating to where it's like, okay, I understand kind of what something feels like, and I can kind of, base what I do off of that.
The one thing that comes to mind, which I actually have to grin about, is when I was in college, I used to bring carrots or radish to class and eat those. And people were looking at me. They had like all their different, I don't know, potato chips or sweets or whatever. And they looked at me like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? I was like, what the heck is wrong with you guys? So it, for me, always has been internalized. I love radish. I love carrots. I love that stuff. But for many people, it does not come as natural. So I can be happy about being lucky there. Scott, I have a couple of questions that I ask each and every one of my podcast guests. But before we go there, I have a couple of other questions that are special for you. And the first one would be, what is a sport or an activity that you are personally afraid of, and why, and how do you deal with it?
I don't think I'm afraid of any sport. There's sports I don't like. I don't like baseball. I hate baseball. I think I just look. You all probably played baseball as kids, whatever. I never got into it. Wasn't a baseball person. My parents didn't make me play. My parents made me play soccer as a kid, and that's it. They weren't big on sports either. I would say ice hockey. I like watching it if it's on, but I'm not a huge like hockey fan either. I do like basketball. I like football, but I wouldn't say I'm afraid of any sport. Now, activity, on the other hand, you would have to, at this point in my life, and it might change, and I could feel myself starting to change. You'd have to pay me to go skydiving. Skydiving to me is like terrifying. I don't understand why anyone would jump out of a perfectly good plane. That just like doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure if that hits the category of like maybe extreme sports is to me is like crazy, like cliff diving or base jumping. Anything like that is terrifying. Anything in the air, like I'm not a big heights guy. I don't know why. I look at it, and maybe because I'm not in control. I think that's probably the biggest reason. I like to be on my feet and in control of my body. And I think those things take the control away. The only other thing maybe is swimming. I used to be a really good swimmer, and now I'm not as confident because I've had so many injuries just over the years. I'm not as confident with swimming anymore, so I'm not a big like, oh, let's go in the ocean and swim. I'm like I'll do it, but I'm very like cautious when I swim. But swimming is for exercise. I think is actually really good for you. So I will say I will do that when I can. But yeah, an activity that I'm not really afraid of anything. Yeah, but like anything that I'm off my feet and a chance of falling and dying. I think that's like so anything like that is probably what I'm afraid of the most, I would say. Rock climbing, but like with no harness. If you do rock climbing with no harness, I'm like, or like bouldering, I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like, why would you, like, that's just terrible. Like, if I fall, that's it. Like a spinal injury, like I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's not, I'm pretty risk adverse when it comes to that kind. Now, as of today, I feel myself starting to be like, maybe I will jump out of a plane. I'm like, no, that's stupid. I will have those arguments with myself. Like, I should do this. I'm like, just to live life. But yeah, it's crazy to me.
The funny side note, I did my first skydive roughly 10 years ago by now. And it was actually funny. It was in Mexico. And I was with a friend, and everything was like, I think our appointment was at noon. By 1, we were on an airplane. And everything went fine. Everything was cool. It was a tiny airplane, though. And we are confident, okay, we're going to jump out there. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be fun. We flew up. And then this airplane didn't even have a door. And you're looking at this door, and you're like, okay, like, it will be fine. And then you go up, and you go further up. And slowly but steady, your brain, or I don't know, I guess your instincts are telling you, like, dude, what the heck? Like, why... would you jump from an airplane? And so your body tells you, I was like, yeah, I want to do it. But your body tells you like, no, you really don't want to do it. And whoosh, you jump. And it was one of the most amazing things, I must say. I really liked it. Everybody can choose for themselves to do it or not to do it. But it was exactly that. So even if your mind is like, okay, I would like to do it, at some point, looking at an open door or a non-door in an airplane, and it's like, okay, let's jump out of there. You will question yourself, like, why would you do that? Why in the world?
Gosh, absolutely not.
Wonderful.
Absolutely not. Just you saying that reaffirms me. Like, oh my god, not anytime soon at least. You have to pay
One
me,
day,
you know?
Scott, we're gonna jump together. Wonderful.
Oh my gosh, it's terrifying.
All right, Scott, we talked a lot, and I'm sure that people would like to reach out and find out more about yourself. We've mentioned your podcast, but if people want to engage, how can they do so?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is my website, scottspeaksfitness.com. Really easy. There's a contact tab on there. You can just contact me. It also has all the podcasts and all the things on the website as well. My email is scott@scottspeaksfitness.com. So really easy. And I believe there might be a way to contact me through the podcast. I'm not sure. The email might be on there. But if you go to the Power of Progress on whatever station you listen to, iTunes, Spotify, you should be able to contact me on there as well, and actually you book a call with me and things like that. So those would be the main ways. Instagram is Scott Friedman 24. I use my personal as a business one, so I post on there. I'm not huge on Instagram, but Instagram, Facebook. I don't use Twitter. I'm not a huge Twitter guy. I don't use like TikTok or anything or Snapchat. So just Instagram and Facebook. Scott Friedman 24.
Wonderful. I will make sure to link that obviously in the podcast description as well. And that leads me to the final 3 questions for today's podcast episode. And the first one, Scott, would be, what is an important truth for yourself that most people do not talk about or do not know about?
Oh my gosh. That people don't talk about. Okay, because I would say my main truth is like communication is key. I think that is so, but I think everyone does talk about that. So I'm gonna go a different direction. I'm gonna say self-awareness. I think a lot of people don't talk about self-awareness, don't understand self-awareness. I think that it's evident when you see people doing certain things. It's like, how are you not aware that you're doing whatever it is that you're doing? So I think awareness of yourself and how other people perceive you, how you are being perceived generally, how you perceive yourself. I think having that awareness is key to whatever it is that you want to do in life. Because if you don't understand how, number one, people are perceiving you or how you perceive yourself, then I think you're gonna struggle a lot. So I think having that self-awareness is a really crucial key in whatever venture in life that you want to do. So when you asked me like before, what are you afraid of? Like, okay, well, internally, like I get like scared when it comes to skydiving, and I'm aware of that, and I'm like, but why am I aware of that, and how do I go through that? And so having that intro and maybe almost introspection is really important. That self-awareness, I think, is a crucial key in everything that we do.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and I fully do agree self-awareness is absolute key. The second question, Scott, is who are your mentors and whom do you look up to?
Oh man, there's a couple, some famous people that people aren't gonna like. So what I think my first person was probably Kobe Bryant. Not that he was actually a mentor, but I looked up to Kobe and just his work ethic. His work ethic was unbelievable. Never met him, obviously, and unfortunately he passed away before his time. But I just loved his work ethic, his mentality towards things. Like, he just flipped the switch. And he was the guy who's shooting at 1 a.m. when everyone else is in bed, and he's like, I'm going to be better than you. I love that. Tom Brady, as cliche as that sounds, I just love his work mentality as well. His health perspective, I think, is super amazing. And the fact that he is the greatest of all time to do it, I thought, and growing up watching him win Super Bowl and just winning and winning and winning, and not the fact that he won was so crazy, but the way he did it, his modesty, whether he's actually modest in real life or not, I don't really care. But the way he portrayed himself and the way he always gave credit to everyone else, or when things went bad, he blamed himself. I love that mentality. Les Brown, massive motivational speaker, got me into like the idea of speaking. If you listen to his stuff, big thing. And then I would say Bob Proctor with mindset stuff. I think he was a huge inspiration for me a handful of years ago. And again, he also just recently passed. Was a huge inspiration for me. In terms of, people that I know and mentors, my coach, I had a coach, his name is Sam Crowley. He has his own podcast and everything like that. He helped me kind of build my message and kind of help me figure out what was important, what wasn't important. And of course, not that it's cliche, but your parents, right? They, my dad, my mom, and kind of growing up and learning from them and things like that. I think what they did was, incredible. And I think that learning from their mistakes and learning from their successes has helped me kind of find a path along the way. So those would be a handful of quick ones if I had to just, throw them out there.
That leads me to the last and final question for today's conversation, Scott. And as I know that you love flying so much, I would like to ask you the following question. I call it the 3 truths. And it's a rather hypothetical one. And I would like you to imagine that you are traveling in space all by yourself, and actually for quite some time. And after all that solo travel, could be weeks, could be months, could even be years, you encounter a human-like species. And they can only process 3 facts or 3 truths about humanity before they decide whether or not they want to get to know us. What do you tell them?
Oh God, what? I've never even thought about. Oh my God, what an existential crisis I'm having. Okay, hold on. So I'm traveling through the universe. I meet an alien species that is human-like, and I gotta tell them 3 things about. Okay, so 1, we fail a lot, but we evolve from it. And so that would hopefully cover all the wars, all the issues we've had in the past. So they won't want to kill us, right? So it's we evolve from it. It's necessary for us to fail in order to improve. We are, man, this is such a very difficult. I've never been asked a question like this before in my entire life. I would say that we are overall a very caring society. If you look at just what we do for other people, I think we're very caring inherently, even though the leaders might not be that way and how they do it. So even and I would say, we, third truth. So first, second, third truth. That's what a great question, by the way. This is an amazing question. I hope other people have struggled with this like I have, because that's a very out there question. We are I would say we're a naturally curious people. We always are trying to find the answers to something, and that leads to certain things. That leads to potential issues, where people come to different conclusions. But I think that those would be the 3 things I think naturally we have in society. I'm not sure, and maybe ask me in a couple hours, I might have a different answer. But off the top of my head, I would say those would be my 3 things. Some people are like, "Oh my God, those can't be," but I think those would be 3 things I would try and teach the alien race before they decide to learn about us.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that, and I will make sure to invite you again, and then we can discuss those 3 if it stayed the same or if it changed. And Scott, with that, thank you so much for being a guest on the Just Another Mindset podcast. And if there is any last and final words for today's episodes, it's all yours.
No, I appreciate you allowing me on the show and allowing me to ramble and talk and rant, and this has been amazing. You asked some great questions. I appreciate it. The only thing is, look, if you have a goal, just push through. The only way you lose is if you quit and just stop. I would rather live with the regret of doing my best and just, okay, it didn't work out the way I thought, versus living with regret and never trying and what could have been. So if you're looking to do, because life is the longest thing we do, and yet it is infinitely short. So I'd rather live with being embarrassed and not knowing something than living with, I could have done this, I could have been someone else, I could have been better. I'd rather never have to deal with that and live with at least trying. So if you're thinking about doing something, I would think about that long term. What do you want your life to look like when it's coming to the end? And no one ever lives with oh, I wish I didn't do this. No, you learn from all the experiences. So have as much experience as you can versus regretting later, I should have done that, and anything. So I would say that's my final message to everyone is if you're thinking about it, do it.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
If you enjoy this podcast and learn from it, please feel free to share this episode with a friend or 2, and make sure to subscribe to the Just Another Mindset podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please use the next 10 seconds to give the Just Another Mindset podcast a rating, and know that you will help me to create more meaningful content like this, and also that it will help other people to find this content and get inspired as well. If there is any future topic or guest that you would like to hear more about on the Just Another Mindset podcast, please let me know by leaving a comment on YouTube or sending a mail directly to contact@ismaelwondergarten.com. And if nobody told you lately, be reminded that you are worthy, you matter, and you can achieve anything.
Do more of what makes you happy.
Be yourself. Positive.
Change.
Just another mindset.